All right, we are here and live with Barbara Talks Business, and I have another exciting guest today, which I will introduce in a moment. But Robbie, if you'd like to wave hello at the guests, and we're going to jump into some fun stuff. But before I tell you all about Robbie and all about all the topics, I just want to give some of the basics, right? This is Barbara Talks Business Season 2, Episode 8. And Robbie Samuels is famous for no more bad Zoom. So use that hashtag as you're telling all your friends about how awesome this show is because of Robbie today. And then later we'll talk more about it, but I want to throw out the name of the title to this particular talk is No Room for Bad Zoom, which I love because I love rhyming stuff. And so Robbie, awesome title. For the guests who are watching this live, we first start this as a video and then we turn it into audio. So if you're watching this live on video right now, we're in a couple of different places, and go ahead and if you want to leave a comment inside of YouTube or Facebook, and if you have questions for Robbie, he can answer those right now. But so just feel free to ask questions. Don't be shy about that. I was actually, the reason I just hesitated, I think I forgot to change the title of this, but that's okay. We will fix it after we're done. But I also want to mention that there is an opportunity to win $50 cash on today's episode. So if you like money, you should stick around because you will have an opportunity to win $50 cash later in the episode. All right, let's get to who this awesome guy is on the other side of my screen. On my screen, he shows up on the right, but I believe on your screen, he might be on the left. So, Robbie Samuels, are you tired of Zoom fatigue? I know I've been. Today's guest will help you to stop causing it. He believes that events are about content and connection, and virtual events are not an exception. He's been recognized as a networking expert by Forbes and is an industry expert in the field of digital event design. Has been also noted by JDC Events. He helps national and statewide advocacy organizations strategically bring their events online with less stress and greater participant engagement. He also trains and certifies presenters and meeting professionals to use Zoom, online facilitation, and virtual event design to execute engaging online experiences. Please join me in welcoming, all the way from his home in Boston, a TEDx speaker, an HBR contributor, and a Scrabble champion, at least in his own home, Robbie Samuels. Happy to have you here, Robbie.
Oh, I have to give a shout out to my friends M&M. They do this great training on how to do emceeing, and they helped me craft a new intro. It was great to hear it and always a little fun. So, but thank you for having me here. I really, really appreciate it.
You are welcome. And I know that this topic is especially important to entrepreneurs, but even more so in today's age. So we're in the era of 2020, which means that we are still in a COVID-19 pandemic, and Zoom has become the thing for business owners and even the high-level professionals. It's not just for entrepreneurs, but especially the people who watch my podcast are many times entrepreneurs and business owners. And so this is a very relevant topic for so many reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So Robbie, first I want to touch on the spot. In your introduction, you said that it's important to have content and connection. Can you touch on what that means?
So prior to the pandemic, I was not a virtual event design consultant. I, wasn't producing events on Zoom. I was instead teaching people how to leverage opportunities to network at conferences. I was showing associations how to design more engaging and welcoming events. And at the time, I did this because I believe the reason people went to events wasn't just for content, but also for the possibility of making great connections. And this has been proved. There's actually a study by the International Association of Exhibitions and Events found that 76% of people surveyed so that networking was a top driver for why they chose to go to an event. But even then, people weren't great at following through on their best intentions around networking, which is why I was trying to fill that gap. Now we fast forward to virtual events are synonymous with events. They're no longer bonus content, which means that virtual events now have to meet that promise for participants of providing both content and connection.
Yeah, I totally can see that. There have been so many times in my past that I've gone to events, and collected lots of business cards, met some really cool people, and then Monday came around or whatever was next business day, life happened, and even with the best of intentions, sometimes you don't always get around to following up or keeping up with that relationship until you need something, and then you feel bad to message them only because you need something, right?
Right. Well, at least you even collected the business cards. There are people who fly across the country, stay in the room, sit in the front row, don't talk to anyone, don't go to the breakouts, really miss key opportunities. And I think it's actually, if it's a well-designed event, it's actually easier in a virtual event to make these kinds of connections because there's that awkward walking up to people. We don't have to do the figuring out how to break into a conversation. Virtually, we're sent to breakout rooms with a good question, the right number of people, and good things can happen.
Yeah. Yeah, that is awesome. And this is a well needed skill. It really is. Like, follow up and networking has
Right.
always been something that is needed in business and in professional world, but really uncomfortable sometimes if you don't know how to do it right, right? If
Right.
you've not been taught. So, Robbie, I've watched a lot of your videos and I've been, I do my homework on
Uh-huh.
guests who are going to be on my show. You've got some valuable content out there. But one of the questions that I would like to ask so that my audience gets a feel for you and what you talk about the ingredients for designing an engaging online experience. Can you go
Mhm.
into a little bit more depth about what that means?
Yeah, if you were being offered this award-winning French cookbook, so you can make this amazing gourmet meal, and you got so excited because your friend said just follow the steps, and you'll make delicious food like I do. And you go out, you buy new pots and pans, you get new sharp knives, and you're getting ready to sit down and make this amazing meal, and then you realize you don't actually have a lot of the key ingredients. And you're not really that comfortable using sharp knives. You don't usually measure things correctly. So now you're thinking, "Oh, I maybe won't be that excited about, using, this cookbook." So that's sort of like what it is like with the whole online space. If you're really excited about having this dynamic, engaging event, but you go to use breakout rooms and they're not enabled, or you go to make someone a co-host, they can help you moderate chat, and the co-host feature is not enabled. And if
Mm,
you go to use whiteboards and you don't know how to use it and you don't know how to save the whiteboard once you have people finally using it. So I think that it's critical that we get our settings correct. And our settings are at zoom.us. And I made a video. It's free. It's not even an email opt-in. It's available at robbiesamuels.com/, uh, Zoom settings. I remember which one it was. robbiesamuels.com/Zoom settings. And it's a one-page PDF, but I also have a link in there to a video where I will walk you through all the settings. I just think that that's the first thing we have to make sure people are comfortable with and have that. By the way, I'm hearing you type. I don't know if you realize that.
okay, yes, thank you. I wanted to put up the website for you. Most
Awesome.
of them
Thank
I
you.
have had pre-typed, but when there's something new,
I
that's
love
good
it.
to know though.
Yeah.
So I will say that my assistant Amber has checked out a bunch of your videos too, and I was actually sharing with Robbie right before we got on the call that Amber's not quite as tech savvy as I am. She's so amazing at everything she does, but sometimes she's like, "How do I do this particular thing?" And then I'll create her video on how to do it. And she really liked your video on, like, you had one on how to update Zoom, and so this is really cool that there is one on properly setting up your Zoom settings, because you are right, Robbie. There are times when people need to do something. I've been in Zoom calls when it has been awkward because people are like conversating about this, like in front of everybody who's at the meeting, and they're trying to figure it out. And it's like, oh, wow, this should have been done before the meeting,
Yeah, because
you know?
really, back in March and April, I did have a couple of experiences where I went to an event that was to show people how to use Zoom, and I was like, "Oh, let me see what people are talking about." And A trainer went, this happened twice in that time period. A trainer went to show people how breakout rooms work because no one had experienced them, but they were using the organization's Zoom, which was not set to have breakout rooms enabled. And it's kind of like an AV writer. As a professional speaker, I have a particular way I want my audiovisual set up. I like
Right.
a lapel mic. I don't use PowerPoint. I don't want the slides showing behind me. I don't want the lectern in the middle of the stage, right? So there's an AV rider as part of my contract. So I'm really clear about what I need. Not
Hmm.
having things enabled that you want to reach for is like walking into a room and saying, I was planning to share this great PowerPoint with you, but I forgot to request a projector. It's
Yep.
like, it's not very professional. Now, back in March and April, totally forgive them. It's a thing that happens. But, now a year later, as we're reaching again March and April, no, it's not. So think of this as your rider.
Yeah. Yeah, good point. All right. And then one of the other things that I thought was intriguing about what you talked about that I'd like you also to share with the audience, identifying the purpose of your event.
Well, I was fortunate to be certified as a virtual convener by conveners.org. And conveners.org really is a wonderful organization focused on helping people gather better. And I was suggested to connect with them because I had been talking, not using the exact language, but I've been talking about this concept for years. And what they say is purpose first design. And I think the simplicity of that phrase is wonderful. So
Mm,
before you start, deciding what tech to buy, because that's the other thing that happens. Instead of people working on their technique, they tend to buy a lot of technology. And,
yeah.
that's like buying all the fancy pots and pans and sharp knives, but you don't know how to use the sharp knives correctly. And, I think at the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of my speaker friends went out and bought a ton of sort of add-on gear. And then they were like, they hadn't even unboxed it all and they didn't know how to connect it. So I just think that we want to focus on why are we gathering? What is the transformation we will hope our participants experience? Are they going from thinking one thing to thinking another thing, from doing one thing to doing another thing, from feeling one thing to feeling another thing? What is that transformation? What are they hoping that transformation will be? And then what tools do we use to make that possible? And there's some wonderful opportunities online that you can't actually replicate in person. And then there's things in person I would never dare to try to replicate online. So it's really about reimagining how you achieve that purpose using all of the available digital and analog tools. So even offline tools. Like here's an example. So this would be, giving people things like this to pass out and hold up, and just something tactile, or welcome boxes at conferences and things like that. So I just think, understanding what your goal is will help limit the creep around trying to fit everything in, because you can't have multiple purposes. You have to have sort of at least one primary, and then maybe you can have sort of secondary and tertiary goals as well.
Yeah, I like that. That's great, Robbie. Thank you so much for sharing that. I want to just put up on the screen. We have some people saying hello in the chat. So if you are here,
Awesome.
say hello. But Amber, I mentioned
Oh,
earlier
hey,
that she
Amber.
was on your event Friday. Those of you who are watching this live, you'll get to hear more about Robbie's weekly events in just a bit. But on the screen, you see this is Amber. I went to his Friday event and I learned so much and had so much fun. Now, Amber is my assistant and she went to the event originally on my behalf to kind of scope out what was going on so that I was prepared for this conversation. But she loved it so much that she was like, I want to do that every week. So thank you, Robbie, for making it so much fun for her. I'm even going to check it out now
Brilliant.
as well. But yeah, if you're in the chat, say hello if you're watching live. And then if you have questions as we go, do not be shy to ask. Robbie is not shy about giving answers. So if you have questions, just ask. Okay.
Perfect.
And one more quick note, if you are watching this inside the private Facebook group, it will not show me who you are. I'm going to show this on the screen too, because since it's private, it won't show your name, the private group. So if you're inside of my private tools, tips, and training group on Facebook, this is how it shows up if you comment something. So please add your name to the beginning or end of it so I know who you are, or go watch it on on YouTube. So we have Jeff Morris is saying hi. I see here Robin is saying hi. So we got some awesome people in here watching. I'm not going to put everybody up there because we don't have time for that. But I just wanted to remind you guys that the chat is open and I am watching it. So if you have questions, let me know. So while you're thinking of good questions, I'm going to ask Robbie the next question that I have on my mind. Robbie, in one of your videos, you talked about think cinematic rather than theatrical. What does that mean?
So this originated from a Fast Company article written in, I think around May, June of last year by the global events director for Microsoft. And he was trying to explain the difference between in-person events and virtual events. And so he was talking about how in person, you're big and theatrical and you're like taking up a lot of space and you have all these senses that you can kind of interact with. You know, there's sights and sounds and smells and touch. And then, you know, that's very different than the experience of being in a virtual event where it's much more like a movie, like a TV show. It's cinematic, right? It's a box. You're looking in the box and there's a bit more of a barrier, right, between you and the content. And so the way I started thinking about this was right around the time I read that article. I got interviewed by someone who got me thinking about like how every 7 minutes the participant needs to have a shift in how we think about our attention, an attention shift. And so this was a really kind of, this is partly why I think people like my Friday event. It's that I'm working sort of episodically. My event is not just one long PowerPoint. You know, the last thing we need right now is 45 minutes of death by PowerPoint, followed by ineffectual Q&A and no one moderating chat. So this neuroscientist kind of brought this to my attention, and that's how I've been designing my events sort of more consciously now, that every 7 minutes, making sure there's some kind of state change. Now, this could be dramatic, like send people to breakout room. It could be switching between looking at the camera and bringing on my slides and going back to the camera. It could be subtle, like I can acknowledge that I can be like, oh, Barbara gets it. And, you know, and it's so funny because I'm very much looking at the camera right now, not at you.
Same.
But I have the periphery vision. So when I'm looking at the gallery view of my participants as a presenter, I still see movement. And so I will call out, oh, you know, yeah, Barbara gets it. And that usually leads to a bigger smile and then even bigger reactions throughout the event. And so I think that understanding how to kind of keep people engaged, keep drawing them in, and that we're designing more to compete with TV. I have friends in the professional speaking world, and that's how they've been thinking about it. Like they're really competing with quality television more so than an in-person event. So that's sort of an interesting way of thinking about all of this.
It really is. It really is. And so when I saw that, again, I was doing my homework on you and I was like, this is cool. My people need to hear it. And in fact, Agnes even wrote in the comments, thank you, Barbara. This is awesome information. The information is really coming from Robbie. I'm just the one that's bringing you guys together. And then Jeff Morris asked, am I going to drop the Zoom PDF link in this chat? Yes, everything that we talk about, all the links will be put in the description of the video and the audio when we turn it into audio. So it won't necessarily be inside the comments here, but it will be in the description about an hour after the video is done. So watch for all of the links so that you can stay connected with Robbie. Keep the questions and comments coming. We appreciate them. Robbie, the next thing I want you to touch on is the training and certification that you offer for people who want to become experts in Zoom like you are.
So this actually requires me to go back and tell a little bit of the story of how I started doing this. Is that okay? I switch that order on you?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was helping people network at events. That was my work prior to the pandemic. More than a decade speaking on that topic. Published a book on that topic, did a TEDx on that topic, host a podcast, Thus the Fancy Mic, for like 4.5 years on that topic. So mid-March, it's pretty apparent that the at events part isn't happening right now. And so I needed to find a new way to add value. And that was my big question around March 9th. So by March 12th, I finally was like, okay, I wrote a 9 ways to network in a pandemic. I shared that. It got a pretty good response. I decided that was Thursday. I was like, I should probably like try one of those things. So then I reached out to a private networking group that I'm in, and I said, hey, if I host a virtual happy hour tomorrow, which was one of my 9 suggestions, would you come? And I got a few immediate yeses. So I was like, okay, I guess it's happening. So I've been hosting a Friday event since March 13th, 2020, which is now coming on a year. And that's what really kickstarted this. And then the following week, I used breakout rooms the first time because I discovered I had to enable them. Like I learned and grew so quickly. And so my the program, the training kind of came from the fact that people started reaching out to me. I actually found a video of me teaching Zoom technique to people. It was like March 22nd, which is like a week after. I mean, it's like just so quickly. People were like, can you come to our organization and teach us things? So very quickly, I realized I didn't have time to answer people's individual questions, which is what was happening. So, being the entrepreneur, I said, well, I've done enough market research now to know there's a need. Let
Yep.
me put together an offer. So, I very quickly put together a 4-week pilot program called the 5% Advantage Program. And it's called the 5% Advantage Program because I want everyone to get 5% better every time they post, every time they host or speak online. And so that 5% better isn't like a one and done. It's 5% and continuous improvement, which my wife thought originally like this is a really bad name, but I'm like, no, 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 people want continuous improvement. So I had 14, 15 people come to that first one, ran that 4 weeks. And within the first week, I was like, this is a thing. And I actually hosted 4 of them in a row with no break. So 4 4-week programs back to back, filled each one. And
Wow.
by the third one, I realized, you know what? People are working really hard and they deserve to be recognized. So I created an optional certification program. There's no additional cost, but you have to submit a certain video with meeting certain criteria. And the idea is it helps presenters and meeting professionals to become really confident and competent, more importantly, in how they use Zoom, online facilitation, and virtual event design. So some participants are presenters, trainers, speakers, and then I also have people who are, meeting professionals who are trying to retool. I have virtual
Mhm.
assistants who are coming because their boss wants them to have these skills. And so it's just a really great mix. I just finished my last one a couple of days ago, and they're now in the middle of doing their certification program. And what I love is I connected it to credentials.net, which means that when they get the badge, it links to a very official site, and it's a bona fide certification for them. And it's helped them land clients, close deals, and really increase, I think, their own confidence. I'll be honest, the biggest thing they get is they have to do it. It's very experiential in the process. It's not just learning from me for a month, but they're in the process of actually creating and hosting and trying. And I love teaching. So I think that this is, I don't know, I'm really glad I added this as one of the components of my business this past year, but it's been wonderful. And I subcontract out work to some of the people that I've certified because I have clients that need more than one Zoom producer at a time when they're running concurrent sessions, or if I'm booked, I can still say yes. So it's been wonderful in that way as well.
That's awesome. And so if somebody were interested in that, is there a website they go to for that?
Yeah, it's at robbiesamuels.com, but also the 5% advantage.com, the number 5, the 5% advantage.com, or robbiesamuels.com. And the next one right now is planned for May, June. I plan to do it 3 times this year. And if there's a call for more, basically it's a minimum of 6 people, a maximum of 12. So my plan is to do the next launch in May again. But I've also had it happen when I said, no, 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 I'm not doing it. And someone begged me. And I said, well, if I can find 6 in the next, weekend, in
Yeah.
one weekend, I found 6 people. So I've got a wait list of people who've been interested and just trying to find the right time. I also keep changing the time that it meets because of time zones, because I've had people from all over the world show interest. So yeah, definitely reach out. I always talk to people beforehand because I want to make sure it's a good fit and that it meets the needs of what they're trying to do. And otherwise, people can come to my Friday event to just kind of keep getting little tidbits from me that kind of helps them increase their opportunities. So that one you're sharing on the screen, nomorебadzoom.com, is how you sign up for that. And the first 75 minutes is a mix of a little bit of Zoom tips from me, a lot of networking with entrepreneurs. There's 60 people usually most weeks. I will say that 50% have been there 8 or more times, 20% have been there 20 or more times. I mean, there are people who've been there since June of last year, so it's a really long time. And we love the continuous new people that come in. 25-30% are new every week. And then the second 75 minutes are Q&A, where I literally stick around till 7:30 Eastern, answering people's questions, walking them through screen sharing, whatever they need. I want to make sure people have what they need to get set up. And I've often also been scouted, like how you sent Amber, and I didn't know Amber was there. I've often been scouted where people have referred clients by having them come check out my event, because there I am hosting, emceeing, producing, teaching, and it's the best referral system I've ever set up in my life, because I'm actively doing something useful and valuable. And then I'll get I'll get an email on Saturday saying, I didn't want to wait till we were introduced on Monday. We got to do this together. You're the perfect person for our event, because, I want to help organizations not replicate what they did in person, but still meet that need for engagement that participants have. So, but anyway, thank you. I love talking about this program because people have been worked so hard for it,
Yeah, and Amber, when she shared with me, she was impressed. Like, soon as she logged on, like right at the start of it, there were 55 people there already. I don't know what the number got up to, but she was like, whoa, there's 55 people on this call and it hasn't even officially started yet. She was super like thrilled with it. So great job on that. Those of you who are watching, you've got to check out this event. Amber was impressed. You'll be impressed. Go to nomorебadzoom.com, learn more, get signed up. All right, we're about to go into a fun segment. But before we do, I want to remind people that this is your opportunity to win $50 cash. So this segment that we are about to do is it's like a this or that kind of thing, but I don't want to call it this or that because, that's boring. And so I need a name for this segment, and I'm reaching out to my awesome audience to help me come up with a name for this segment. So as we go through it, I want you to help choose a name that correlates with who I am and my personality, but also with the activity we're doing. If you have a name that you would like to submit for an entry to win $50 cash, you must submit it as a comment on the YouTube video. I'm not looking on every video on every place that we're posting this. It has to be on the original YouTube video. So just go look for this video on YouTube if you're watching it later or somewhere else, and make sure that your comment goes there. Otherwise, it's not counted. My goal is to pick a winner like yesterday. So you could have cash in your hand as soon as tomorrow if you win, okay? So don't be shy. Anybody can win. Robbie, technically, you can even win too. So if you think of something as we do it, feel free to put that in the chat. Okay, but before we jump into that segment, I want to do what's called brag time. I just started doing it last week. And as you notice, brag, it stands for Barbara's Random Acknowledgement of Greatness. That's kind of the idea I'm looking for as a name for all of my segments, something that relates to me, but is also fun. So I'm going to brag on somebody today. And today I'm bragging on Megan Maloney. She sent me this beautiful thank you card, and I want to tell you how this stemmed. First of all, I want to tell you that Megan is a teenager. Okay, she's like 15 years old. Super amazing. She goes to our church. She was at the Christmas market this past December, and she sold some pre-made cookie mix, and it came in this very cool little jar. It's pre-made. None of these ingredients need to be refrigerated, so I can make it, anytime I want. So I save one so that I can tell people how great it is. We've had a lot of these, and I gave a lot as gifts over Christmas. But she sent me a thank you card for purchasing from her as a 15-year-old girl, you guys. Like, if you are an entrepreneur, you can take a lesson from her, okay? This is gratitude. I'm going to continue to buy from her. I'm going to continue to tell people how great this is. And these were delicious. And she had other products too, but this is the one I'm bragging about today. So make sure that you're showing appreciation for people who are doing business with you or that you'd like to do business with, or even people you're meeting on Zoom and networking events. Show them that you appreciate them in some way, even if it's just an email saying, hey, it was awesome to meet you, right? Like follow up in some way, shape, or form. All right, so let's move on to the this or that segment. The way that we do this, Robbie, is I'm going to give you 2 words.
Okay.
That's it. And you are going to then use those 2 words and make your choice. And anybody who's watching in the chat, I want you to participate as well. So when I do this or that, put your answer in the chat. Okay. All right, Robbie, the first question, Apple or Android?
Oh, Android.
You know why I put this one in there? I got your email. I think it was today or yesterday, the FOMO email. Tell
Oh,
that story.
well, I started hearing about Clubhouse back in late 2020, and I have an Android. And I thought, well, maybe it's a good thing I can't get on yet because I've got a lot of goals for my business in the first quarter of 2021, and I don't need to be distracted and go all in a new technology. But then everyone kept telling me, you'd be so good. It'll be so great for your business. It's perfect. It's really, and finally I just got to the point where I just was like, couldn't deal with the FOMO anymore, the fear of missing out. So I put a call out to my network and said, does anyone have an old iPhone? Here are the different models that would work with the iOS that it needs to be. And someone within a day, someone gifted me an iPhone 6S. I drove there. She lived like 35 minutes from my house. So I drove there and back. I was driving around Boston for over an hour, like, and it was so awesome of her to make that gift. And she wanted nothing in return because she'd been part of my communities for a very long time and was like, no, you've given a lot, and I'm glad I could help you in this way. So I'm now on Clubhouse at Robbie Samuels. I have not gotten completely sucked in, Barbara, partly because it is a second device. And
Yeah.
so I have to be very thoughtful about when I go on, but I have really enjoyed the rooms that I've been in. Love being on stage, sharing knowledge. It's, for me, it's like, how much value can I offer in this 90-second soundbite has really been my approach to this. And
Okay.
and that's how I've been sort of thinking about Clubhouse and testing out new ideas. So if you are on Clubhouse, go find me and click the bell so that you can always know when I'm speaking on stage, dropping value. And if you are like me, an Android follower and loyalist, lover, whatever you want to call yourself, ask your community, ask your network for an old
Yes.
iPhone 6S. And hey, I even got rose gold. I'm not even
Nice.
an Apple loyalist, and I knew that was pretty cool.
You know what I don't know, you might have already done this, but I'd love to see a picture of you holding your rose gold new iPhone on social media somewhere, because when
Uh,
I told you I got the email and I was like, this is a funny story, I've got to put this in this or that. It came at
yeah.
the perfect timing.
So
And
good.
the funny thing, Robbie, is I'm similar. I'm an Android lover. So when Clubhouse came out, I'm like, oh my goodness. First I was a little bit annoyed, like you, like I don't need another distraction, right? Like, and then, but being in the marketing industry, I was like, well, I've got to at least have a presence there. I've got to at least get the name right. I've got to secure my name in case this does become something big and stay big, right? Because it could just be a trend, but it might
Exactly.
not be. And so, but all my kids have iPhones. So I went to my teenage son and was like, I need you to download this app for me. And he's a little bit like, why? Like, you're going to use my phone? I'm like, I don't want to use it. I just want to secure my name, right? Like, and so I did. I secured Barbara Carr, but I don't use it. I have no interest really in checking it out yet, because like you said, I'm focused on some big goals right now. I don't need another distraction.
Right.
And so I'm focused, but I'm there for, if this does end up blowing up and becoming something that none of us could expect, because I know it is really popular right now, but it might just be a trend. So I'm holding off until I can
Yep.
focus there.
Yep.
So, all right, let's go to the next question.
Sure.
Big party or small gathering?
I list people. If I could hug a stranger right now, I'd be happy. Like, I any kind of gathering, any kind of size, but I will say that I do like a big gathering, like a big party. I like hosting large gatherings. I love mixing and mingling small groups of people that I know as different silos into one big mix. And I ran events like that for years and years, where people would gather, cross issue, cross identity. It just was wonderful. So I really I like a thoughtfully designed event like that. And so I guess that's kind of what I'm now trying to do on a different scale in a virtual space. But yeah, I love hosting, period.
Good, good. Yeah, and I wanted to use that question because I know you teach on both, quality and quantity, and that
Right.
quality is better than quantity, right?
Hard
So
choice.
yeah. And so that was again, I made these questions very specific to you. Usually
Thank
they're
you.
very random, but I made these very specific. And thank you. There are some people responding in the chat. I appreciate that. Please continue responding in the chat with what your answer is, and you might just show up on the screen just like Kelly Goodman just did. All right. So the next question, Robbie, and I think this is my favorite one: croissants or bagels?
Okay. So if I'm eating, then a New York bagel or whatever is the closest that I can get to a New York bagel, because I am, raised in New York. I live in Boston, Massachusetts. I was raised on Long Island, New York. It's a thing. But as you know, the title of my book is Croissants versus Bagels. Yeah, strategic, effective, and inclusive networking at conferences. And thank you for buying a physical copy. And the bagel is the tight knit circle of people who are standing in a little huddle, shoulder to shoulder, and impossible to break into group of people. And this is what happens: we walk in a room, we scan the floor, and we're seeing people in these little huddles. Those are the bagels. The croissant is when one person in that space shifts their body language to make some space for others to join. And so if you when we get back, not if, but when we get back to in person, if you want to be approachable, then and you want to meet people, which is purportedly why you're going to these events, then your body language needs to really reflect that. And so even if you're standing with one other person, how do you stand with a more open stance? So I did an entire TEDx talk on this, which was the most I've ever worked in my life for 8 minutes, I have to tell you. And you'll find that at robbiesamuels.com/TEDx. So robbiesamuels.com/TEDx. You can watch the 8 or 9 minutes to kind of get the whole concept down. I even had people come up on stage with me to really drive the point home. And you can also see now why that content wasn't nearly as valuable in the context of a pandemic. How to teach people how to stand differently and how to shake hands properly and how to hand out their business card with one hand. These are all the things that I was teaching for more than a decade. And so the reinvention was real. Like I had a zero business plan in April 2020, and 8 months later, I had a 6-figure business. So worked my butt off last year to make that a reality. But I'm loving every minute of it.
Nice. And so, yeah, I just did show the book up here and I've got it on the screen. Now on the screen, Robbie, the robbiesamuels.com/bookstore, that link will get them some extra bonuses, right?
It's true. And that link also, croissantsvsbagels.com goes to that link, same link. And there is a bonus bundle that you can get when you buy the Kindle. But if you go to that link, you can get that bonus bundle without even buying the Kindle, which I'm totally fine with. I didn't buy the book to sell big copies and make lots of money. I did it to create value. And so there are 25 individually PDF'd blog posts, much of the content in the book. So basically 25 networking tips. And then each one was also recorded as a podcast. So each PDF has a link to the podcast episode as well. They all have Creative Commons licenses, so you can share them freely. And I've seen people use them to help train their team to basically read this content. Let's talk about it before we go to an event. So yes, very useful. And I will say that even though the book was about being at events, I think a lot of the content, and Barbara, I'd be curious after you read it what you think. I think a lot of this is best practices for networking, period. Knowing your purpose before you go, having a clear plan about who you want to talk to, what do you want to talk to them about, having a follow-up plan. All those things that are important are still important. And, anyone who did well before, I think is still doing well now. And the rest of the people have a chance to improve. And so, yeah, thank you for bringing up the book. At the
Of
time, it
course.
was incredible achievement. I'm actually now working on a new book, which is going to be content from the last 3 years of writing weekly emails. So my weekly emails have a short story like the one we talked about earlier about the
Yep.
Android phone. And a little business or life lesson is usually a little twist. You have no idea where I'm going in the story. It's only 350 words. But I bet you when you first started reading today's email, you had no idea where it was going.
Yeah,
And
I did not.
and then I
But I
always
read
end,
the whole thing, including the tips.
yeah, and then I have the your challenge for this week section, which is 4 or 5 bullets where you can take the principal lesson and apply it to your own life in some way, your own business in some way. And so I'll be taking the best of content from that and turning it into a book. It'll be your challenge this week, life lessons, life and business lessons for the entrepreneur, or some working title like that. So I'm excited. That'll be something I'll be working on later this year.
I like it. Make sure when you do publish that you send me the link so that I can share it with my people.
Thank you. Thank you,
You're
Barbara.
welcome. All right. So for those of you who are watching right now or listening, and we just talked about the book Croissants versus Bagels, I have the book in hand, and I want to first read off just a couple of the table of contents topics, and then I scanned through the book a little bit to find some things that I wanted to ask Robbie about. So here we go. Common complaints around networking. Why focus on conferences? Prep for success. The ABCs of business cards. And I'm just skipping through, you guys. There's a lot in between these. Starting a conversation. 7 tips for conference breakouts. Beyond breakout sessions and the hallway. Graceful exit strategies.
That's a big one. That's a big one
That's
right
a
there.
good one. Yeah. Let's see what's on the next one. Treat first timers as VIPs. There's another one, but I want to wait and save that one to the end because that was one of the things I have on here. So on page 91, you have a quote here that says, to have a strong first impression, have a business card handy. So tell me, how many times have you met someone who did not have a business card to give you at a networking event?
Oh my gosh. It's hysterical because it's partly the flaw is partly in the design of how women's clothing has no pockets. Clothing designed for women often does not have pockets. So that is like, I want to just name that because I do think that there's a bigger problem at hand and the patriarchy needs to solve that.
Yep.
And, I always joke, women got the right to vote in, 1920. It went into effect. And 100 years later, when do women win the right to pockets? Like, the phones keep getting bigger. The pockets barely hold chapstick. So what happens is women will have their business card in their bag, but they left their bag at their chair, and
Mhm.
or they put their bag by coat check or something. And so we're chatting, and they're like, "Hold on a second," and they want to weave through the crowd away from me to go get their card, and as if I'm standing there waiting for them patiently. So I always say, like, you not only have to have your cards on you, but you had to have them reachable with your right hand, even if you're a lefty, because you're going to hold your drink in your left hand, shake with your right hand, and then you'll pull your cards out and hand a card. So if you don't have pockets, then, the lanyards often had a place that you can put the card behind your name tag. You might want to just hold a couple, or you can put them on your phone hold because you're going to carry your phone, right? So there's
Yep.
your phone holder might have a way to put some cards in, but just like planning ahead to make that positive impression so people can stay in touch with you. But I also talked about like touching the card and pointing something out as you handed it over so that it's a moment and not because Americans, we just like grab a card and throw it in our pocket. And really just trying to take it from like the Japanese, who really have a whole ceremony around it. So how can we kind of disrupt this moment in a way and make it more memorable? But yeah, that whole idea of being just prepared for these interactions, and I think that's true here. So let me just bring this to a virtual space. If you're going to a virtual networking event or any event that could possibly include networking or breakouts or conversations with other participants, which basically is a lot of the events you're going to, pre-write information that you would want people to know about you so that you can
Yes.
copy and paste it and put it into chat. And keep in mind that if you're using Zoom, which is a lot of these are on Zoom, that you have to have a link start with http:// or else it won't be a hyperlink. If it's just
Right.
www, it's not a hyperlink. So pre-write your LinkedIn message. Hey everyone, find me on LinkedIn. I write about XYZ. Here's, find me, and then your link. So just having that pre-written and explaining the value of it. Don't just say connect with me on LinkedIn, but what do you talk about and write about? What is your area of interest so people know why to connect with you? I think would be really beneficial. So having that pre-written, copy, paste, good to go. There will always be a right moment for when to do it. Don't do it right in the beginning. It's like giving people a business card before they say hello. Don't drop blocks of text into chat within 3 minutes of the event starting. Really find the rhythm of when that seems like the right time. But yeah, so preparation. I always say this isn't magic. Even magic actually was 80% preparation and 20% presentation. The rabbit was always there. So, similarly, you have to have all this planned out for make it look very seamless. And
Yeah.
people be like, wow, how do you do all those things?
Exactly. No, and speaking of which, all of these things you guys keep seeing up on the screen, I put into play before Robbie and I jumped on live. A couple things I did have to retype in because it was something that, just came on the fly, which is completely fine because this is not a scripted conversation. There's no technical real outline for this. I had ideas of things I want to discuss. There's some things I'm not even going to pop up on the screen because we're not going to discuss them. But I pre-made these things that I'm popping on the screen so that when we talked about it, it would show you a visual instead of just hearing, and which works great when we're on video. I know that this doesn't work so much, not as great when it's audio because you don't see these, but for when we're on video, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so another thing at the back of the book here, you've got some like quick they're like little cheat sheets, if you will, it seems like to me. So there's one that says how to draft follow-up email before attending an event.
Yes. This actually, I got interviewed for Inc. at one point, Inc. magazine, and he said, what's something that you haven't already told a zillion people that you think is a great idea? And I said, well, I really think people should write their follow-up emails before they go to the event. And his response was like, wait, what? What does that even mean? And I said, well, if you draft if I was if I meet my ideal connection, what would I want them to know about me afterwards? And if I sit down and think about that for a minute and dash off, 1 or 2 paragraphs, that act actually gets my brain primed to look for that serendipity, to look for the possibilities. I think serendipity happens more often when you know what you're looking for. So I think that by pre-writing that, more of who you're looking for, you're more likely to track those higher priority connections. So, in life, real life, we'd have to track those business cards separately. And here we might just bold the information as we're writing it down in some way. And I think having an hour set aside within a couple of days of the event to do the follow-up, which means if you already have the hour set aside, you've pre-written a draft message, what's the chance now that you're going to follow through? It's probably very, very high. And most people really, this is the area that they need to focus on. But if you find quality connections, who you want to talk to, you've pre-written your follow-up message, and now you just have to personalize it for that moment and give it some context. But it's just I don't know, it just simplifies things and it gets people to get more out of the experience. So I thought about this because when I was writing my book, I kept trying to figure out what were the sections of the book, and people kept saying, isn't there a before, during, and after? And I just wasn't feeling right. And the thing that made me realize what was wrong with that is that follow-up sounds like an activity you do after. But as you can see, if you do this planning and preparation before, if you track the cards you're receiving that are higher priority, then the after is a lot easier. So follow-up was actually something you had to do throughout the experience, not just after. So same thing is true for online. We could go to events and have them have way more meeting by staying connected. And now we can just invite people to hop on a Zoom call for a colleague, catch-up chat. This is something that people weren't doing very much before, but now everyone should be ready to do that. We all have our free accounts if we don't have paid accounts for Zoom, and go make those invitations and have those conversations last longer than that one event.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, Robbie, there are so many comments in the chat right now. I'm going to highlight a couple of them. And while I'm highlighting that, I want people to know that if you want Robbie's contact information, we'll be giving it in just a few moments because we're about 10 minutes left of this show. So, if you're looking for his contact info, get out your pen, paper, phone, whatever, and we'll go there in just a moment. So, let's see. Somebody here says, I hate that. I found skirts with pockets, and that is all I buy. So,
Oh yeah.
post the link with the skirts with pockets because I need that.
Well,
So post that
I
link.
just want to say, Barbara, that one of my earliest blog posts for my website 5-6 years ago was, "When will women win the right to pockets?" That was like, it's also one of my earliest episodes of my podcast. I think this is a real issue.
Yeah, agreed. And clearly the audience agrees too. All right, then we have, let's see, Kelly says, sounds like an interesting book. I'm going to have to check it out. And then Angela says, love the second book already. It's not even written yet. She loves it. Let's see. Tim says, the thought of pre-writing your follow-up. Wow, great idea. Then we have a question here. What do you think about business cards with QR codes?
Well, here's the funny thing. It took me a month to stop carrying my business cards every day because I always put the business card holder in my back right pocket just in case. And I had like 4 kinds of business cards for different things that I did. And it eventually I realized, like, even if I saw someone on the street, I'm not going to, like, 6 feet away, like, throw it at them. So I think business cards probably aren't the thing we need right now. There are other ways for us to stay connected. I think QR codes have gotten a lot easier to use because now we can just point our camera at them and need a separate QR code reader. So I think they went out of favor, and maybe they're a little more in favor. I don't know if they're necessary. If you've got a URL that's easy to remember. So like nomorebadzoom.com, for instance, I don't think I would have a QR code in place of that. I mean, I think having nomorebadzoom.com, I don't know if you've heard this, Barbara. If you have a choice between clever or it's like clever or clear, you always want to go with clear. But if you can be both, that's awesome. So
Yeah.
so if you can find a URL that you're both clever and clear, then people will remember that, and then the QR code is not necessary because word of
Yeah.
mouth is where most of the marketing is happening.
Yeah, that's perfect for that. Like, I was thinking the same thing. It's like there's a use for QR codes. There's a time and place for it. But like you said, nomorebadzoom.com, just looking at that sounds cool. I would remember that. All right. We have somebody asking for, give us a challenge for the week. You talked about that for your second book. Throw one out there. It's on the spot.
Well, the challenge this week was to find ways to give away your knowledge and not hold so tightly to it, to be generous with your knowledge, basically, to find ways to create events and gatherings where people can truly connect and engage with each other on a real level. And to just basically like be a person who shows up and adds value. And the context was, I got in return, without expecting it, this wonderful gift of an iPhone 6S. I didn't show up all those times and offer value and create wonderful spaces and share knowledge because I wanted something. It's just that if you are a person who regularly, I'll say this figuratively, if you regularly give rides to the airport, then when you need one, you not only get a ride, but it's probably from someone that you didn't even drive. You just become known as the kind of person who gives people rides to the airport. So think about how you can be generous. I call this my philosophy of abundance, and it's something I've been practicing for a very long time, which I absolutely believe is part of why I was successful in 2020 in completely reinventing my business. So that would be my challenge this week is, how can you not hold so tightly to something? If you know how to do something, use a technique or a tool or an app, go and do a quick video or explain it to somebody, or just take the time to walk somebody through something you know how to do and just put that out into the world. And, one day, it's an insurance policy. One day you're going to need something. And if you've given into the insurance policy all along, then you'll get something back. And that's kind of how your bigger picture view of a network is, for me, at least.
Yeah, for sure. I want to say thank you to Tim. He posted in the comments that I am so kind to so many people. So I think that's saying that, whenever I need something like a ride to the airport, people like Tim will be willing to say yes because I'm so kind to so many people. Let's see. Robin asks, what about a picture of you on your business card?
So this is really interesting. I love this question because, and I love the fact people want to talk about business cards, even though we're in a pandemic and haven't seen a person we don't have to feed in a really long time in person. So here's what I think about business cards. I think that there should be something that you should be able to point out on the business card. It could be a logo. It could be your picture. It could be a phrase, um, a design element, so that when you hand the card over, you can, point to it. Now, if you're going to put your picture on it, my recommendation is find a way for it not to just be that tiny little square, because that's what a lot of, real estate and insurance professionals do. And then you'll be kind of like lumped in. And even they can be more creative. I had on the back of my business card, the image from my podcast basically took over the entire back. And so it was the full image with writing kind of over it as an overlay, much like my podcast graphic looks, just dimensions were different. And then the front side was white with very minimal blue text. And that was purposeful because I still think we need to have white space on a cards that people can take their pen and write a note and hand us something, or write a note
Yep.
and take a note. Like, I think that business cards, again, this is different than Asian culture where you would never do that. I'm a big fan of turning down the corner of the cards that, you want to keep track of and writing notes on them when you step away from a conversation, putting the date at least and where you met and whatever. So that's my thought. So having something that you can say, like, this distinguishes me from other people. You've can't just say consultants, that won't be very memorable.
Right. No, awesome tip there. And you guys, I know there's still more questions for Robbie, but unfortunately, I promised him 1 hour because he's a very busy man. And so I don't want to keep him too long. So I want to give you guys his contact information. First thing, he's got a whole lot of training videos on his YouTube channel. So a lot of the questions that you're probably asking right now, he's probably already covered on one of his YouTube videos. So go to YouTube. It's youtube.com/Robbie Samuels and find his training videos. And then, Robbie, go ahead and give some of your contact information if people want to reach out to you further.
Yeah, robbiesamuels.com is sort of the catch-all where you'll find everything. And in the next month or so, it'll be a brand new site, which is I'm very excited to be working towards and will soon reveal. I am focusing on 3 areas. I work with organizations to help them bring their events online. I work with individuals to train them and certify them and how to actually use Zoom and online facilitation. And I also am a business strategy coach and run masterminds. That's something I've been doing for years and years and years. And I don't want to get away from it just because the world has decided I'm a Zoom expert. I still love providing value. And I'm mostly excited about helping people find product market fit and then lead generation around an idea. So piloting an idea, that's sort of my sweet spot, and helping them sort of get some momentum. And then when they're ready, get to the point where they're really focusing on sales conversion and conversation. So part of what I bring to the other conversations is the business strategy sense. So even when I'm talking to my event clients, I'm saying, like, how does this event fit with the context of everything else you're trying to do this year? And making sure, again, that it's purpose first in its design. And so you'll see all of that in the new iteration of my website much more clearly, but you'll find some of that at robbiesamuels.com. Please find me on LinkedIn. I post original content 5 days a week in the morning. And oh, look at that. You are wonderful. So yeah, I put content out all the time on Twitter and on LinkedIn, but I have original content every morning, 5 days a week on LinkedIn. I share content from my network in the afternoon on LinkedIn. I'm really committed. I create 3 videos a week that I put out there. All of those videos then end up in my YouTube. So you'll find them there as well. And if you decide to sign on for my certification program, I've actually organized the content in a nice little learning management system to make it easier for them to find what they're looking for. But reach out if you have questions. And of course, come to nomorebadzoom.com every Friday, 5 o'clock Eastern. Drop in, come for as long as you can, stay for as long as you can. We've got an amazing community of entrepreneurs ready to say hello and welcome you.
And, I also want to just throw in there real fast too that Robbie does have a podcast. He has over 230 episodes on there already. It's called On the Schmooze Podcast. And he has guests on here that share untold stories about leadership and networking. So if that's something you're interested in, check that out as well. And I have one more thing here that, from Robbie's application, when he first filled this out, I asked him, what is a practical next step for my audience to take to implement this information? And he said, start hosting your own Zoom events to keep improving your skills. So Angela, earlier you asked for a challenge. He did give you a challenge, but here's another one for you guys.
Yeah.
Host your own Zoom event. Scary or not, if you need help, reach out to Robbie. All his contact information will be posted in the description here, his website and all of that good stuff. So make sure you reach out to him. Robbie, this has been phenomenal. Thank you very much for this information.
Thank you, and I'm so glad you brought up that challenge because it's true. The only way to get better is by doing. So, but thank you for inviting me. I love how interactive your community is, and I look forward to sharing the replay. Cheers.